Recently, a document has been created on Jesuit higher education, its mission, methods. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, the story of this document that we recently adopted actually goes back a number of years. After the institutions, our Jesuit universities, were incorporated as with lay boards, so they reverted from solely Jesuit hands to lay and Jesuit hands. It was never clear, in the Vatican's eyes at least, it was never clear as who really is responsible for these institutions. So we came up with a kind of a formula and proposal for how to assess the Catholicity and the Jesuitness of these institutions. And the Congregation for Education preferred that Father General be the person who guarantees the Catholicity of the institutions. And so we came up with this thing called the Mission Priority Examen. We wanted it to be a self-study, a kind of self-reflection like in a Jesuit examen. And we also wanted it to be an opportunity for the institution to take a look at a number of things going on in the institution, starting from how does it advertise itself? Does it say it's a Catholic Jesuit institution in all of its official documents and on the web and so on, to how does it recruit trustees? Are they told you're taking on a Catholic work, a Jesuit work? And then down into the curriculum and into the student body and into the staff. Are there particular things? And we had 6 or 7 characteristics. So that was the first document, and I helped write that, and it was only, I'm going to brag about this, it was only 8 pages long. And when we were done with the first process of every Jesuit institution in the U.S. doing a self-examination, sending their examination forward, and then letting the general approve it, they said, we should flesh this out, and we should get a faculty and administrative group to help clarify this. So the present document, the new document, is 42 pages long for institutions to go through. The product, of course, as you would suspect, it's a product of a faculty and administration committee. So we have this document, which goes into some detail about, for example, the UAPs, the Universal Apostolic Preferences. How are you teaching about care for the environment? How are you recruiting minorities and those left at the margins, and so on? How do you think your curriculum is instilling hope in young people, giving them a sense of the future that's, that we would like as Catholics and Christians really to relay? So the new document is much longer, but institutions now, they go through it every 7 years. And it's been a really important and really, I think, graced experience for those that have already done it. Everyone's done it once. Those that are going through the second round with a lot more precision, a lot more detail, they're finding it really helpful. The local committee is usually chartered by the president. They do the self-study first. A visiting team comes in and looks at this. Often that visiting team says, you're doing a little more than you even say you're doing. You're doing really well. Or confirms that these are some rough spots you have to work on. You're not quite as good as you want to be. And so we affirm your proposed projects for the future. That all goes to the provincial, who sends it off to the general and asks for a letter to reaffirm the Catholic and Jesuit nature of the institution. So in a way, I think we're set for when there are fewer Jesuits involved in upper administration or fewer Jesuits even on a board of trustees. There's this document which really nicely lays out what does it mean to be Catholic and Jesuit. And when faculty and students, administrators, the local committee when they start studying this, their eyes kind of open up, and I think they recognize that it's kind of in the water. It's in the culture here. We don't always think about it that way, but the document kind of reaffirms what in vast majority of our places is already going on.
When you think about those different attributes, is there one that in the interactions that you've had where people would say, this seems to be the distinctive Jesuit piece of the identity? Is there anything that pops or stands out in that sense?
Oh, well, I'll tell you what pops out as distinctive. It's very easy for our colleagues to talk about the social justice nature of the place, the social justice concern, the institutes they have, the way they've constructed the core curriculum, for example. But it's harder for them to talk about the faith dimension. And they recognize that. We're still in a period, I think, where we don't know quite what we should do with the fact that our student body comes from, say, no faith, very little training in faith, to all kinds of faiths, to several different important faith traditions that are not Catholic, as well as a very strong Catholic group that comes. And they're not quite sure what to do with that. Yes, there's a core curriculum that tries to address some of the questions, but I think we still have, and almost all of these self-reports admit, this is an area where we really have to work. I think once people find that faith is about having a belief system, that it takes work to construct it. We're not talking about catechism, whether it's Protestant or Muslim or Catholic catechism. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a vision of the world as created by an almighty God that in fact wants it to prosper and wants all people to prosper, especially the marginalized, especially those who don't seem to have the same opportunities, the way our lives, our worlds are constructed. So I think that's where the work is.
How might Jesuit sources help in the cultivation of Jesuit identity for universities?
So what sources do, for those that are reading real sources, it makes you want to go, you want to go to Manresa, you want to go to Montserrat, you want to go to the Church of the Jesuits, you want to see where all this stuff began in Rome and Spain and so on. So they kind of want this tradition to come alive again, or to see how it is, what it looks like from its roots. And then I worry about the fact that we have got to meet the needs of these new administrators and faculty who, if we don't offer them what it is to be a Jesuit Catholic institution, they'll not know to even ask for it sometimes. So we've got to figure out a way of putting ourselves out there. And that's perhaps one of our big jobs, I think, over the next 10, 20 years, is to figure out the Jesuit resources we have, where do we put them so that they have the best impact on most of our other colleagues.